Support WrestleTalk!
Give us a subscribe.
A lot has been said about Vince McMahon over the years. Some think he's the best mind the wrestling business has ever seen, while others think he ruined the industry by monopolizing the territories and his competition. He's the mad genius behind Hulkamania, the rise of Stone Cold Steve Austin and John Cena, but also the Invasion, Naked Mideon, and the Dicks. But while all of that is etched into history, some stories remain only in the realm of rabid speculation. I am Luke Owen, and these are some of the craziest conspiracy theories about Vincent Kennedy McMahon. The NWO was one of the most legendary factions in the history of professional wrestling. Their debut was huge and shook the wrestling landscape. Kevin Nash and Scott Hall had performed for Vince in the WWF as Diesel and Razor Ramon, but jumped ship to WCW when Eric Bischoff was given more control and started offering big money contracts. I was all about the money then. The first year was $1.2 million for 120 days. Back then, guys were maybe making that kind of money for Vince, but you were working 300 days for it. Nash and Hall debuted in WCW as the Outsiders, with the insinuation they had been sent by Vince and the WWF to kill WCW. This was furthered when Hulk Hogan joined the team at Bash of the Beach 1996 to form the New World Order, along with former 1-2-3 Kid Sean Waltman and the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase, all former WWF stars. Several conspiracy theorists claimed this was actually what was going on behind the scenes, believing Hall and Nash didn't go to WCW for the money, but instead to destroy Vince's rival promotion from the inside, allowing the WWF to rule supreme once again. This theory does fall down though, when you consider the rise of the NWO put more eyes on the WCW product in 1996 and 1997, becoming the hottest act in wrestling and nearly destroyed Vince's WWF in the process. Sticking to a similar theme, only this time with former WWF head writer Fitz Russo. Russo had been a huge part of the creative direction throughout 1997, 1998 and 1999, including the feud between Stone Cold Steve Austin and Vince McMahon, the rise of The Rock, Undertaker's Ministry of Darkness, and D-Generation X's second run. In interviews, Russo has said he left WWF in the summer of 1999 because he felt the addition of a second show called SmackDown would just water down his creative juices. I was burned out and I didn't appreciate Vince adding SmackDown without a heads up or help. Vince was adding a show that would bring in millions of dollars in revenue, and our salary did not go up 1 cent. When Russo jumped to WCW, the company was on the downturn. Ratings had declined from the 1997 and 1998 heyday, and pay-per-view buy rates were also suffering. As a result, management felt Eric Bischoff needed to be replaced with the man who, they thought, created the Attitude Era. Russo's run though was less than stellar. Titles changed hands consistently, stupid storylines ran wild, and he made David Arquette and himself World Heavyweight Champion. His plans and ideas didn't work, and WCW's ratings and pay-per-view buy rates sank further and further before he was eventually sent home. So why would the head writer of the #1 promotion in the world jump to the #2 promotion and then book an unpopular B-movie actor to win their world championship? Conspiracy theorists claim Vince McMahon sent Russo to be bad on purpose so they could put the final nails in WCW's coffin. If this were true though, you'd expect Russo to return to the WWF when WCW was purchased. I mean, he did briefly in 2002, but his ideas were so poorly received, he was demoted from head of creative to a work-at-home consultant, a role he quickly left to go and work with TNA. Maybe Vince is trying to kill them too. Vince McMahon funding Extreme Championship Wrestling has been a long-running rumor in the wrestling world. It explained why Vince gave Paul Heyman and his company airtime on Monday Night Raw to promote their upcoming pay-per-view in 1997, and how ECW stayed in business despite constantly verging on bankruptcy. Heyman himself has since confirmed this, revealing WWF paid ECW's parent company $1,000 a week until they folded in 2001, as well as a $500,000 loan in 2000. In July of 2000, I had a meeting with Vince about what do we do here? And he said, what would help your company the most? My answer was pretty bluntly, I'm pretty behind on payroll. A $500,000 loan would help me through this pay-per-view and help me last the summer. And he gave ECW a $500,000 loan. ECW was in a quandary in 2000 and 2001. They were too big to be a small-time company, but too small to expand to compete with WCW and WWF. That opportunity did arise though when Dusty Rhodes called Tommy Dreamer about doing an ECW invasion in World Championship Wrestling. I said, Paul, this could save the company. And he said, no, Vince will go crazy. And I was like, who the f cares what Vince wants? Right then and there, I felt something was up. In March 2001, WWF won the Monday Night War when Vince McMahon purchased WCW. A few weeks earlier, ECW closed its doors and Paul Heyman walked into a job at the WWF as a commentator on Monday Night Raw. And this is where the conspiracy theory comes in. Some believe that Vince McMahon had Paul Heyman in his back pocket from the WWF funding ECW, and he'd asked Heyman to foreclose ECW so they could do the invasion angle. The accepted narrative is that ECW couldn't afford to stay open, but Tommy Dreamer argues otherwise. I felt he gave up. I stayed in ECW longer than the owner. ECW didn't have to go out of business. I saved the company. I had millions of dollars offered to me, but they didn't want Paul running the show. The Montreal Screwjob is one of the most famous stories in their history of professional wrestling. Everyone knows it, and everyone has their own thoughts on who was in the right and who was in the wrong. If you're not aware of the story, here's a quick recap. Bret was WWF champion and didn't want to drop the belt in Canada. Bret was also going to WCW. Vince didn't want Bret to leave with the belt in fear he'd drop it in the trash like Medusa did with the Women's Championship 2 years earlier. So Vince changed the finish of Survivor Series and had Earl Hebner call for the bell when Shawn Michaels put Bret in the sharpshooter, declaring HBK the new WWF champion, all without telling the Hitman. Bret spat on Vince, punched him backstage, and went to the competition. But the question is, was it all a work? Vince McMahon soon became an on-screen character following Survivor Series 1997 and turned into the company's biggest heel in 1998, feuding with Stone Cold Steve Austin. This was the rivalry that turned the tide for WWF in their war against WCW. Not only that, but all of Bret and Vince's backstage discussions were filmed for the documentary Wrestling with Shadows, which had an unprecedented amount of access behind the scenes. Vince made money, Bret's made money, and WWF didn't lose anything when their top star went to the rival company. But it's not just the tinfoil hat brigade who think this was all a work. A few wrestlers believe the conspiracy too. It was all a work. I don't believe all that. I'm sorry. Maybe it was true, maybe it wasn't. Vince, I didn't bite. You didn't catch me. When they showed the whole f***ing deal and they showed Vince come out with his hair messed up and selling the punch, anyone who knows Vince knows he doesn't sell 3 years of the federal government up his f***ing ass. He doesn't sell spinal fusion. He didn't sell a double quad injury. But he's gonna sell a punch he got from one of the boys backstage on f***ing film? Come on. I still think it was a work. No way does Vince let anyone write WCW in the air like Bret did. What really smells is that Bret let Shawn put him in his own finisher in the first place. I think that work was so compartmentalized that the guys in on it didn't even know who else was in on it. Whether it was a work or not, Bret Hart didn't return to WWE until 2010, an episode that, coincidentally, was going up against a live episode of TNA Impact. Make of that what you will. Want to know 8 wrestlers who hate each other in real life? And what was the real reason Batista left WWE in 2010? Click the videos to the left to find out more. Press subscribe and support WrestleTalk on Patreon. I have been Luke Owen, and that was a list.